Used to be I didn't like that research project.
I didn't like it either.
That's what I think it is.
Which?
Oh, this is the grief one. No.
Again, I wasn't too supportive of that. Hey, where's your partner? Right? They leave it?
Well, it goes down, like, and now I have to go down, I don't think at 4 o'clock.
We're going to pick them up. That's what you forgot.
5:30. And I had 5 o'clock meeting that I was late for.
Okay, I guess we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of our R3 February 24th board meeting. We'll just pick up where we left off. So as everyone recalls, there were some items of business that we took care of last time, and some of the less pressing matters were deferred until today. So I guess where we'll start is G, Chair's Report. I just wanted to say a couple of things with respect to Arden School. There was an article in the paper with respect to the Fraser rankings, and our principal, Kevin Reimer, wrote a wonderful letter to the editor to talk about his school. And while we acknowledge there are some challenges at that school with regards to provincial government assessment test scores, if it was my child, I can't think of a better school that I would want to send them to than to Arden. I've been the trustee liaison for Arden for the past 3.5 years, and they have an amazing community that comes together there to help support the kids that go to that school so they have the best learning environment that they can. They have a very active PAC that's very supportive. And just a few things I wanted to mention that go on there is they have a penny carnival every year where the whole school community is involved, and the kids really feel like they're part of something great that's happening there. The PAC is very concerned about making sure there's enough books in the library, and sometimes their fundraising is geared towards that. They have babysitting available so that parents can come to their PAC meeting. We have the ever-popular smart boards at their school. Parents and staff have banded together to make sure that these kids have some good nutritious snacks available, so they provide some fresh fruit in every classroom every week to help support kids that maybe don't have any fruit to bring to school. They have a family spaghetti dinner every year. I've been to concerts there where every class in the school played keyboards. You know, what an amazing place for kids with challenges to go to receive the support they get there. So I don't think the Fraser Institute is a decent measure of what happens at that school at all. I think that proof is in that community, and they're just great. So that's what I wanted to say. If anybody else would ever like to give a little report on a school that they're a liaison trustee for, I think that would be a good thing so that people can come to hear more about how wonderful our schools are and not rely on the Fraser rankings. Okay, so that being said, we'll move on. Management reports. Jordan is away taking a very well-deserved vacation for a week. And so Sherry is sitting in his place and can perhaps speak to some issues. I think you have some announcements to make, and then we were down to number 2, life skills.
And through you, Madam Chair, just wanted to share with the trustees some good news. Very, very pleased to share with the trustees that as of this afternoon, we had an official announcement from the Ministry of Education that was very positive. If I could just perhaps just share that with you before we put it out to the field tomorrow morning. So I'm not sure if trustees are aware that 2 years ago the province launched a Premier's Award for Teaching Excellence. It's in its 2nd year, and we were fortunate enough to have 2 nominations from our valley, from the district, and we just found out this afternoon that 2 of our teachers have received awards. And if I could just read to you the little news release that came out from the province. It speaks to the Premier's Honours Outstanding Teachers. The province has launched Education Week 2009 by honouring 20 teachers from around the province for their dedication to students and student learning, including beginning and veteran teachers, and those who teach environmental awareness, literacy, healthy living, and other subjects. BC teachers are amongst the best anywhere in the world, and I want to thank them on behalf of all British Columbians for the dedication they bring to educating our students. That's a quote from Premier Campbell in the release. The second annual Premier's Awards for Teaching Excellence recognizes the efforts of outstanding teachers in BC. The award winners are currently working directly with students in the BC K-12 public, independent, or banned school system. Goes on to list how impressed they are with the hard work, dedication, and professionalism of our BC teachers, and we want to recognize teachers and thank them for the important work they do. So we were fortunate enough to have 2 award-winning teachers, fortunate in that they are here in the Valley and they provide us with great service. The first award was a Lifetime Achievement Award, and that went to Dean Doherty. He teaches Science and Psychology 12 at GP Vanier Secondary School in Courtenay, and he uses innovative approaches, including hands-on activities, field trips, and guest speakers to engage his students. He shares his extensive knowledge of children with special needs with schools, parents, and communities, and has won this award for his use of technology to support students with special needs in the classroom. He helped develop Science 9, Psychology 12, and Technology 11 curricula, and serves as a leader and role model as the school's athletic director, grad sponsor, and coach of the soccer and cross-country running teams. He also coaches hockey and soccer in the community. The other award went for school leadership, and that went to Abby Luxemburg. Abby Luxemburg teaches information technology at North Island Distance Education, where he has worked with staff, parents, and community members to develop a program for gifted learners, and has recently integrated social studies, English, and information technology into a new Humanities 9 course online. He has shown initiative and innovation by bringing new ideas to his colleagues and to parents, including developing tutorials and fostering professional development. Abby created the first student council for the online school and is supporting council members in building a sense of community through contests, clubs, and online drama productions. He also spends time coaching parents face-to-face to help them better use software for electronic PAC meetings, and has created an online forum for parents to help them better understand the online world in which their students are now learning. So through you, Madam Chair, I would like to extend the district's congratulations to those 2 teachers. There'll be a press release tomorrow. I believe it could be in the newspaper tomorrow. I had a call from a reporter late in the afternoon. So that's just great news for us. We knew that these teachers are gifted, and we're very fortunate to have them. But it's nice for them, 2 of them, to be recognized amongst the 20 that were recognized across the province.
That's pretty amazing, yeah. Congratulations to them. We're very proud. Very proud. So, go ahead.
That's okay. And then the next one goes to
life skills, I think was...
it goes through Marianne.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where to begin, so I'm going to refer to probably the email that you sent.
Do you want me to say anything why I contacted you? Just a concern with respect to the number of kids that were in the life skills program classroom and also the prep program at Vanier, just that these are some of our most vulnerable students in the district, and a concern that I have that perhaps reconfiguration last year put us into a situation where those classrooms are perhaps too full of students. That was basically my concern. I'd asked for a report, I guess, last December, if it would be possible to have more information and then to have a discussion with respect to that. And so that's how it comes to be on the agenda this evening.
So just a maybe brief sort of summary of where the program, there's 2 programs in our 2 high schools, a life skills program at Martinsville and another program called the prep program at Vanier. And we endeavor to keep those programs at around 25 students. And that's the historical size that those programs have always been. And the staff ratio is usually about 1.5 teachers to those 25 students. So it's in the range of 1 to 15. There's also a very high ratio of EAs, especially at the life skills program at Isabel. And each of the programs has a program worker on site. Program workers are QP staff who have a little bit more capability, not capability in terms of how they work, but capability to work with groups of students without the supervision of a teacher. So they're able to take students out of the school on trips and provide that degree of supervision to work with small groups of students. So each program has a program worker as well, and then there's a third program worker divided between the 2 programs who works with the students around work experience. One of the other issues that was mentioned is around the actual space, like the physical space. So I'll pass this over to you, highlighted on the Marcusville map, the space that they use, and I'll just briefly explain it. There's one large room that has an accordion door. It's the size of 2 classrooms with an accordion door so that you can split it into 2 rooms if you want. And in addition, there's a small kitchen in there and a very small space. You could probably work with a group of 6 to 8 students and other staff, and a little computer room. They also have access to a room just down the hall. It's in the 500 numbers, but I forget the actual room number of it. We call it Fish Room because it has a big toilet in it. They have access to that room, and then we also use the kitchen that's outside the multi-purpose room because the Isabel Lifework program does a lot of work doing the canteen at Marcusville School, so they actually serve lunches to the general population of the school a couple of days a week. So that's the Isabel, what the physical space looks like. And at Manny, the space is a little bit more contained. It has a large kitchen space, a large classroom space, a smaller classroom, and then a couple of other smaller rooms. And again, that's highlighted on the floor plan of the school. Currently, there's 22 students at Marcusville and 25 at Vanier. We're going to get 2 new grade 8 students at Vanier next year, and some students will graduate. And next year at Isabel, we're going to get 4 new grade 8 students. So the total grade 8 population is quite small. Where we're finding the bulk of our students in secondary now is in integrated programs in all of our high schools. That was what I provided for you, was kind of an overall look at where all the kids who are in those subject categories in grade 8 to 12 are within our system. So you have 22 students who are at the ISBO program, 25 at Vanier Prep, and then another 68 students who are integrated in regular classes throughout the school district in all of the other schools, and in Vanier and ISBO as well. And those students are supported through our support teachers, through learning centers in the school, and again through EA staffing that support them in regular programs. No. I mean, I think you need to keep the programs at some kind of a significant size because the parents, with the kids in these programs, that's where they develop their friendships and their relationships, and also their movement out into the adult community. So if we split it up into 3 programs, I'm not sure that we would actually have enough of a cohort group for kids to, develop those relationships. I'm not sure. And we did try once in the dark past to start a 3 program at Highland, and the parents were adamant that they wanted their kids to stay in this film academy. And I think that was mainly the reason, was to try and keep the groups at a size of about 22, 23, 25. Now, I think you have to say there is some kind of maximum size, and it is about space. And I think 25, 26 students is about what you hope for.
I have some things to say. Maybe I had to pass the gavel while I say all the things that I have to say. Is that all right with you? Okay, here. You want it? Sure. Prompt me if I start talking too much. So I guess for me, I have had a bit of feedback from various different people, and I'm not in my head thinking that it does make sense actually to expand it to a 3rd location. 2 probably is good, but the feedback that I'm getting is that 25 kids in one class, specifically at Isfeld, is maybe too many kids. The physical space perhaps is not conducive to a good learning environment and working environment. I guess, and I understand it's two spaces, I've been there, and I actually, a question that I would have is how many trustees have visited this space and how much staff have visited these programs to see how the change has affected what happens there. But I'm wondering about the space myself, and I'm also wondering about the teacher allocations. I can see 1.5 teachers to 25 kids, but a thing that I wonder about there is that the 0.5 teacher, I understand, floats between Vanier and Isfeld. And so you have 1.0 teacher who is mostly responsible for 22 kids, for developing programs for 22 kids. So it would be very unique individuals that sort of don't fit neatly into the usual programming. So coming up with 22 plans, helping to assist 13 EAs with what to do with these individual students so that they support them well. I think it feels to me like an awful lot for the physical space and for one teacher to be mostly in charge there all the time. And I wonder if it couldn't be expanded into a second classroom, just an adjoining classroom, and make it maybe a 15-to-1 ratio. I hear that other districts have a ratio of 15-to-1, although nothing to back that up, I have to be honest with you. So those are the sort of things that I wonder about, having an adjacent space and having a teacher for each space. Those are my comments.
One of the other pieces of the puzzle is that the kids aren't all in the classroom at the same time, which is the reason why we have such a high ratio of EAs to students. So on any given time at the program at Mark Isfeld, there might be 14 kids in the classroom space, 3 kids out in the kitchen area, 2 kids down in the fish room, some kids out in the community. So, I mean, I can share what a whole week's schedule looks like. And at the prep program, the kids are integrated into at least 2 of the 4 blocks. So there's never more than, in the classroom space, there's never more than half the kids, and I mean, very rarely half the kids at one time.
Okay. So you may have more to say, but before I offer that up, are there any other trustees? I thought I saw Fran's hand.
How do the sizes compare to what's being the traditional class size?
The traditional class size in high school.
No, the traditional class size for the life skills program at Isfeld and the prep program at Vanier. Are the numbers bigger, higher this year?
No.
They're the same.
Well, they
Are
might be
spaces different?
Over the last number of years, the program size has been virtually the same. It goes up and down, maybe fluctuates 1 or 2 students. So it hasn't increased.
So if I may, I think there are kind of 2 questions on the table. One is sort of embedded in Susan's first comment was, has there been an impact because of the reconfiguration? So is this year different than last year? And the second piece, at least how I've interpreted it, is just an overall commentary or questions about the program, irrelevant of whether there's a difference between last year and this year.
The year before, we had 1 point at Isfeld, but let's just talk about Isfeld. We had 1.0 teacher, and we had, they don't have the exact number here, but I think there was probably 23 or 24 students with 1 teacher. So last year, with the idea that the reconfiguration might have an impact, we increased the staffing to 1.5. We actually ended up with less. We started out with a few more kids, but over the course of September, a number of kids were moved because they weren't in the appropriate program, and we ended up with 22. But we continued with 1.5 staffing, and we also increased the staffing at Vanier last year as well, or this year as well.
Just before I come back to you, any other trustees before I come back to Susan? You're on.
Okay, so if the class sizes are the same and we just collapse the middle school programs that were in existence, I'm going to have to guess that the most challenging kids to support must be the ones that remained in the life skills program. So I could see that the workload and the quality of programming those kids received might have been somewhat challenged, I would think. My understanding is that the .5 teacher is only there 2 afternoons, or they overlap with the 1.0 teacher maybe 2 afternoons a week. So there's not a great opportunity for collaboration. So both teachers kind of have to be up to speed on all of the kids in the classrooms, which seems to me to be a lot. I think it's a huge caseload or workload for one person to have. When I think of, there may be a teacher with a social studies class in grade 10 with 25 kids in it, maybe 3 of them have IEPs because of whatever issue that wouldn't come anywhere close to the needs that these particular kids have in that class. I wonder how well supported those kids are.
Well, it's hard to compare whether the classroom teacher and a district program teacher. The regular classroom teacher will have 25 students or 30 students in every block of their day. I mean, they would be teaching, in the case of a secondary teacher, 100 students or more. So a caseload of 15 seems reasonable, but I mean, we have other district programs where staff are case managing eat more than that or equal numbers. Like we have in elementary schools. But what we based our staffing on for well, we don't have certs anymore, but that's sort of where it came from. Especially as a research teacher, we said the maximum caseload that they could manage would be 25 students. And so that's where we sort of got that number from. And the rationale behind that was that because those students are integrated into the class of a regular teacher, the regular teacher has responsibility for those students as much of the day. The special needs resource teacher is providing resource to that classroom teacher. So while they are the case manager, they're not doing the direct instruction. So that was where we came up with that number. We tried to keep it a little bit lower than 25. The programs, we tried to keep the ratio at 1 to 15 because there was more direct teaching. One of the things that happened at ISFEL, and we're in the middle of programming the students for next year, is that very few of the students were programmed into the elective courses in ISFEL last year. And I'm not exactly sure why.
No idea.
We can find out about that totally. But we're right now doing the programming of those students. So they will be programmed into regular program classes like home ec and art and some of the things around that are appropriate. And so that again takes some of the pressure off the actual classroom, the physical space of the classroom, as well as the instructional components, because there is functional curriculum that happens in both of those programs, typically done by the teacher with small groups of students, like maybe functional language arts, functional math, cooking program, whatever it happens to be, but with small groups of students. Not usually with the, well, in my experience, never with the whole 25 at once. They do go out together, though, like bowling on Wednesday afternoon.
I understand they have to go out of the school for some things because there's not really enough room there. Some of the, and also for part of their learning as well, the community integration.
I don't know that that's the best thing, but it's kind of something that has always happened, that they always go bowling. It's just been part of the and they have fun. That's also a time when the two teachers tend to be able to work together.
So you have
because
one.
they're not at home.
Do you have another question?
No, it was a question that I asked in the very beginning. I'm just wondering how many trustees have ever visited that program and how often district staff goes there to see what I'd like to know people's sort of level of understanding of the program.
So the question is, just by raising of hands, how many trustees have sort of participated, witnessed the program? We have 2, 3.
Not since the change in configuration.
Not changed, the change in configuration. And from district staff?
Maybe if I could just, the ratio is not unusual. I think I heard the question, can't remember where it came from. Is this just a Valley ratio? It's a very common ratio. in these kinds of programs across the province. And for all the reasons that Marianne described, you wouldn't find them profoundly different in Nanaimo or Victoria or Greater Vancouver. The idea is that there's a special education philosophy around socialization and developing relationships, particularly in the senior grades, that speaks to having a core, a critical mass for those kids to attach to and to interact. And that is as important for them in some ways as some of the functional curriculum can address. And so you're always balancing that ability to have that critical mass for each of those kids to find somebody in that critical mass to develop those kind of relationships with. And so that's where most districts land at in an integrated program, so that's the critical piece here, is that 25 in an integrated program has usually at any given time less than half of the students actually in the classroom as they're out and about doing other things and interacting. The other piece is the physical space is always, in some ways, is supported and compromised by the number of adults, because you can very often have more adults in the classroom at any given time than you do students, because of the nature of the work of the A's and how they support those students and how they sometimes, as they're older, capture and release them a little bit. There are times when there are more adults. You might have 4 students and 7 adults in any given block, or you might have the same number of adults to students. And so you factor all of those things in when you set a program capacity. And it speaks to how the program moves during the course of a day. And Marianne's got that plotted out in a week. And so, but it isn't profoundly different here than I know and have experienced in other districts, or that I would suspect. Most people land, or districts land at numbers like this.
Okay. So I think sort of implied in your question as to who has attended from the trustees is a suggestion or perhaps a recommendation for those trustees who haven't, and those trustees who haven't been in a while, to inform themselves by viewing the class in action, just so we're perhaps better informed. And I think that we'll take that under advisement. Is there anything else prior to bringing this discussion item to a close? Any comments or? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next time.
For you, Madam Chair, the next item on the agenda is still part of the superintendent's report, and it's Strong Start, starring Marianne Crane.
I put the ministry around Strong Start guidelines in just because I thought it might give you an idea of where the ministry intends to go with this. But my real reason to put this on the agenda was just to give you a little bit of history about Strong Start and a deadline that I have to meet for the ministry, which is actually March 6th. We were one of the districts, just to bring you guys up to speed a little bit, we were asked to pilot Strong Start in its first year, which was 3 years ago, and was it 4 years ago?
It was 4 years ago.
4 years ago. So we piloted at Glacier View, the old Glacier View site. It was very successful. We added a second program at Puntledge. We moved the program at Puntledge to Courtneyell. We moved the program that was at the old Glacier View up to Thruniche. We were successful in getting funding for a third program, which we thought would be at Aspen. We ended up not enough space at Aspen. Brooklyn wanted to get a site in Comox based on the number of parents who were attending from the Comox area. So we wanted something in Comox. We have a steering committee that it's not just for Strong Start, but it's an early years steering committee that I chair that has representation from the Ministry of Children and Family Development, from the Ministry of Health, from various agencies in the community, from early childhood educators, from Success by Six, and the planning process around everything that we're doing around early learning goes through that committee. We meet monthly. So last year we developed, at the request of the ministry, a longer-term vision for what we would like to see for Strong Starts in this district. And then I got an email from the ministry about a week and a half ago saying they would like a submission, and we submitted that last year. They would like a submission for our plan for next year. So I emailed them back and said, well, what about the submission that we made last year? So they said, would you like us to send that back to you? So that you can send it to us again? So anyway, I took it back to the steering committee just to make sure we were still on the right path. So Strong Start also, it's fully funded by the ministry, like fully funded in the sense that it's fully funded for salaries of the staff, fully funded for the equipment. So, and also for some training for the staff. That's what the ministry's commitment is. So the ministry's commitment in the future is still to be funding the staffing and any kind of equipment costs to outfit the site. So for our district, if we are successful in getting more funding, the next place we would like to put one is in Cumberland. It's the growing community in terms of children. When you go up there, you actually see lots of children and babies. And just right now, the enrollment in the 3 Strong Starts that we have is 473 children, age birth, as I like to say, not 0, birth to 6. The bulk of those children who are attending Strong Start are 2 and 3-year-olds, and it seems to be because there's a lack of programming for families in the community with children that age. So we get lots of families, lots of dads, lots of grandpas. It's great, and it's really a neat feel in the schools where they are. I think all the schools really appreciate it. So our plan, if you guys will agree to let me resubmit this, Cumberland would be the next one. Then we would try to address the needs in the north end of the island, which is identified through the EDI as being a fairly needy area. Our problem there is...
Can I just stop you? Does everybody know what the EDI is? New people?
Early Development Instrument, which is the UBC. They track preschool age children and school readiness in 5 areas of vulnerability. And we just finished doing the assessments for this year. They're just being sent in, so we'll get data back from them probably in the early fall. So we want to address that the north end. Our problem in the north end is that there really isn't space in Huban or Miracle Beach. And so the idea was to put it at NIDES, Solon campus, and use the room that they use for the kindergarten room, for their kindergarten, what do you call that, E-class, which is on Tuesdays. So that would mean we could only use the room 4 days a week. So I talked to Andrea at Royston, could we use the kindergarten there 1 day a week? So then we would have something down in the south end once a week, where there's a far smaller number of young children. And so we could serve both areas. And then if we were lucky enough to get yet another, and I think we'd probably be done, I think we would put one back at Puntledge, because hopefully by then there would be space at Puntledge. And we find even having it at Courtney L, that it's a challenge for families to get there. So, and the real goal of this is to address the needs of vulnerable families. And so we need to keep the Strong Start programs as close as we can to those populations.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Lori? It is a program that I wholly support. I'm just wondering if the government's going to support it. I've heard that Success by 6 funding through MCFD is supposedly on the chopping blocks, like Community Links funding, all this, but funding seems to be getting cut. Are we guaranteed that we're going to receive funding for it? Because the lack of funding that we're going to receive next year, we can't afford to do it as a district ourselves.
Clearly, if we don't fund any of the program, we have to stop.
So I had heard it was funded for only 3 years, and then we were on our own.
No, it's ongoing funding.
Okay.
And when the ministry, in this email that I received a week and a half ago, they're asking for what do you want for your next phase. I think this is going to continue because of the demise of all-day kindergarten. I think the ministry sees this as a thing that parents are very supportive of. We were part of the 3-year study in this district, and there's quite a considerable report which I can put into your drawers in the trustee room if you want to take a look at it. And it really shows a lot of parental support in addition to educator support for this. So I do think that for the amount of funding that it costs the ministry to support this program, it's pretty minimal.
Okay. I support it.
Yeah?
I happened to be in Vancouver this weekend and heard Minister Vaughan speak about this program. And while she acknowledged she didn't do the math with respect to all-day kindergarten, and she actually said that she didn't do the math, she said that this is one program that the ministry was going to support and continue on supporting. I found it odd and quite comical at one of her comments about putting BC back to work and supporting BC that, is that for early education programs they were going to build modular components out of BC wood to support early child education. So I'm not too sure where that's coming in this or not. But it was an interesting concept. But I support this program. In the conversations we had this weekend in Vancouver from the minister and the deputy ministers, this is a program that she is going to support and keep on funding, and they intend on expanding. And it's a well-worth program, and I would gladly support whatever initiative that you do. I think the children that are doing it are benefiting along with the families.
Are you hoping for, do we need a motion to move this forward, or just some nodding of heads?
So
You have
just
the
to
nod.
check what we're nodding.
Mrs. Sexton, do you have any comments to make with respect to this?
I think it's great. I am pleased that, I know in its infancy, one of the challenges was that the parents who became engaged were the parents, arguably, who were motivated to become engaged, and the folks that we were trying to catch were the more hard to reach as opposed to hard to serve folks. And I gather that we've moved quite a ways down that continuum to engage those people.
And the other thing that we did was, because a lot of funding comes for equipment, and we've had a lot of equipment that we were able to go around the district and borrow and get and steal. And, Diane Blackburn and I actually, well, this was a few years ago. Reallocated to us. And so we were able to set these centers up for quite a reasonable price. And with some of the money that we saved, I hired an outreach worker who actually last year we were actually going out and bringing families and trying to get them set up and comfortable so that they would start to attend on their own. And we were working with West Valley Family Services to identify families. And I think that's the only way that you can actually make this really work.
That's great. I just have some comments to make, and then I'll go back to Lori. I think that having one out at Solon is a great thing that I think would be well received by the people out there, to have some kids being able to go use the school there on a regular basis. For Cumberland, I'm just wondering if there's some opportunity at all to somehow integrate that with the community school that operates there, to see if there can be some support mutually back and forth somehow. And I'm wondering where in Cumberland it would actually be put.
Well, that depends. It's funny you should ask that.
You have an answer.
Well, I think that it looks potentially, like, I mean, because when I was writing this, I wasn't sure. Potentially there could be space in the elementary school.
Where?
At the end of tonight, we may know that. If there isn't space in the elementary school, there would be space at the junior school. And if there isn't space at the junior school, if the ministry says they want these to be in school sites, and they hope that they're in elementary schools. And I've kind of gone through this with them about option 1, option 2, option 3. And if there's no space in the school, then they'll look at a community space. And so then we would look at partnering up with the CRI or something like that. So I think there will be space. It looks to me like...
Well, we have we're having the portable that's remediated, and we have an empty classroom in the school.
Well, we did that to create space to make sure that the kids are there now have enough room. So now it sounds like we would be taking some of that away. And my understanding was we had a static population there pretty much, with one blip. I think the grade 5s have 25 kids in them, but all the other grades have like 33 kids, and it's pretty static. So my only concern, I think Cumberland should have one. I think it would be fantastic for Cumberland. But the space, I would be concerned that's taking away space from the space we just created.
And in discussions that I've had with Phil at Cumberland Junior, he assures me that we could find a classroom there. And then our idea there was to use it for some type of, peer tutoring, work experience type experience for some of the kids in the school. And then it's at least close to the elementary school here.
Lori?
Yeah, you answered my question, or you asked my question.
Okay, so you sort of want direction on this. Do you feel ready to give direction on this, trustees? Yeah? Okay, so is there anyone opposed to allowing staff to go forward with the plan that Mary Ann
Supporting staff.
I'm asking in the negative. I'm assuming that, I'm not assuming anything. Is there anyone opposed to this? There you have unanimous approval of the plan. Thank you. Local school calendar?
Motion that the board approve in principle the local school calendar for 2009-2010.
Second.
Any discussion? Just notice that we're not recommending that we should shut the schools down to support people flocking to the Olympics. That the schools would be open during the Olympic period, and we'd have our normal March break. Thanks. Okay. No discussion. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Research proposal submission, item number 7.
For you, Madam Chair, if I could refer you to page 50, here I need glasses, 58. This is a research proposal that came to Dr. Tinney, and it is an interesting proposal with an interesting topic. I'm not sure if you've had the chance to look at it. I would encourage you to do so. There is board policy and past practice and procedures around the board approving research proposals for usually surveys, interviews, depending on what the topic is and who the target audience. In this case, they're proposing that they interview teaching personnel and through counselors and any other kind of personnel that would be appropriate, and that they do a survey of students, and that's contained inside the request on page 58. The topics, however, may lead you to want to think about it for a little bit. We're not sure if you had any chance to actually think or discuss it. The topic is unusual, and it may be totally appropriate for our students and for our staff to be interviewed, but it's we would suspect that you would want normally to send this to like education committee to have a more in-depth look at, or in the past these things have gone to DELAP with a recommendation to come back. So I'm not sure at this point in time, and Dr. Tinney wasn't sure, other than just bringing it to you as correspondence from through Dr. Tinney to the board about what you'd like to do, whether or not you want to make a decision tonight about it. There's enough information there. If you want to task senior staff to go back and ask Dr. Belshaw what deathscapes really are, and provide you with some more feedback, or whether or not you want to send it on to education committee for conversation and discussion.
My understanding of the deathscapes is it would be roadside memorials.
What we think.
Yeah.
So Danny,
Benches.
and then Fran.
I was going to make a motion to acknowledge, receive, and file.
Second discussion.
I actually particularly did not like the topic sitting there. Normally, we request a report back from anybody doing a degree or survey within our school district, and they're usually education related. This is the first one I've seen of a topic like this. I just don't see the staff and the students putting in the time for this.
Young?
I was going to say, I don't see any educational relations or benefit to this also, so I'm going to support Danny's motion.
Fran?
And just to elaborate a bit, Dr. Belshaw contacted me to explain a little bit more, because there wasn't, we don't have much information here. I don't know if Dr. Tinney had more information or not, but just to elaborate a little bit and inform you about it. He's he and his partner are one of the experts in this field, and the idea of deathscapes wasn't just, based on my understanding, not just the roadside memorial, but the use of how people mourn and how that affects their quality of life, and what objects or sites or whatever are used as a means of that, a means for that. So when he started talking to me, I said, well, I don't know. So we talked a little bit about that in terms of the potential value to students who are mourning, and given the number of tragedies unfortunately, too frequent an occurrence in our district, then I started shifting my thinking and thinking, oh, maybe this would be something that's of interest. Of course, noting that every student has the right to opt out, like aside from the ethics reviews and all that it's gone through. And he is vice president of North Island College and a known researcher as opposed to someone just interested in exploring this. So that's just a little bit of background, and I don't know if that changes people's minds or not. But my initial impression was to, I don't think so. And then after speaking to him, I thought, well, maybe. So that's where I'm at now.
Tom?
So my initial impression was very positive of this, so I won't be supporting the motion just to receive and file. I do think it has a substantial educational value for our students, for our community. I think the whole notion of dealing with death is a reality for all of us, and in some ways sort of denying an opportunity, and as Fran said, it is based solely on people coming forward and volunteering to participate as opposed to being compelled to, without giving them an opportunity to share and to learn and to offer likely very good perspective from their own perhaps personal experiences or their observations would be an opportunity missed.
Okay, I'll put myself on the list next. I, too, won't support the motion. In my professional life as a social worker, I deal with older adults, and so I touch death a lot, and I can see the difficulty people have with grieving and mourning in their lives. And I think that it's very important that at our schools, if we have an opportunity to help kids learn about grieving, mourning, and to contribute to studies like this, I think that we should actually support studies like this. So perhaps death is a bit of a dicey subject. Sometimes maybe it would be best to refer this to the district leadership and policy committee, the policy advisory committee, for a discussion, because there's a group that represents some of our partners there, and to have a fuller discussion to see about the community's comfort level with this. I think this would be actually a very, very good thing. Anybody else? Okay, so the motion was to acknowledge, receive, and file. All those in favor? Opposed? So that motion is not supported. So I'm wondering if we could have a subsequent motion to do something different with this item, whatever would seemingly make sense.
Before doing that, can I ask, is there I'm just thinking in terms of time, is there a time limit? They're hoping to start this in September? There
was time urgency in hopes of having the research done for a conference, but I didn't think, I forgot about that point, but I don't know that we need to adjust what we do or how deeply we want to analyze it based on that timeline, because it's still research that could be done for another purpose if we would want to go there.
So, I'm sorry.
Impressed that just my second part of that was, and I have to be, I need to be honest with you and just let you know that part of what we didn't have was information, and perhaps Trustee Goldberg does have that information, but what we didn't have information, it did cause us some concern. Need to be just honest about that. That we had hoped to get for the researchers, if it was to proceed, to define their thoughts and ideas about the survey itself in terms of the students. Because unlike other research projects which we have had, normally those research projects basically other than facilitate the survey. Usually either someone comes in and does the survey, the teachers are primed and ready to support the actual survey experience. There's very little long-lasting kinds of triggers. Like normally the surveys couldn't potentially trigger other issues. And so that causes us some concerns. So what we were looking for and hoping was, if this was to proceed, some both clarification and input into the thinking about the survey, how it was going to be delivered, how it was intended to be supported on the part of the researchers, and what we would need to put in place to make sure that the survey, which may, in the board's opinion, draw all kinds of information, good data, doesn't create, there are not ripples for kids and for staff that are difficult to deal with that in terms of what the survey questions provoke or expose or tease out. And so this one is a little bit different for us, and we did not get the clarification we needed about those pieces, and that's why we were hoping for a bigger discussion. And we would like the ability to work with the board if the decision is for that to come forward and to happen, so that we could give you some input about how receptive the researchers are about, which I'm sure they will be, about what we think needs to be in place in order for the survey to take place.
So my motion is to send this to the Policy Advisory Committee for discussion and recommendation. Within that, capture a large part of what you're saying.
I have a seconder for that. Any discussion?
Question, if it goes policy committee, what time frame? Because the policy committee meeting's meeting tomorrow, the other one will be next month. So I sort of need some direction on when this would like to be brought back, so we can have that discussion on that. So just a time frame would be appreciative if you have that, or just...
And I have to say that I'm a bit behind. I'm coming into this conversation halfway through on Dr. King's behalf. But truly, if there's our opinion would be this needs to be set up to be successful for everybody. So if the timeline that I just heard from Trustee Goldberg was new for me, I wasn't aware of the conference timeline urgency, but I would suspect the researchers would want it to be done well. And so I would suggest that when it gets to Policy Advisory Committee and there's a fulsome conversation and a final decision on the part of the board, then the researchers would be grateful for that opportunity, if that's what's in mind.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Definitely wouldn't go tomorrow. So, yeah, for me, that you're right. It would, just the act of filling out the survey will have some triggers, and so there clearly would need to be actually people available to do debrief with anyone completing the survey. Clearly, and so for me, my expectation would be that you guys know what you're doing and you would support this if this comes to pass in a way that makes sense.
Help us support
Absolutely,
because it will create more
yeah.
work, and I don't mean that in a mercenary way, but it will create, and we'll need to have some additional protocols that we would normally not have in place in the normative research master's thesis kind of survey.
Absolutely. Any more comments? Okay, so motion to refer to the Policy Advisory Committee. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So that's the end of the superintendent's report. Anything else, Sherry?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for pinch hitting. That's great. Secretary Treasurer's report. Len, did you want to speak to this item?
I can just briefly. Thank you, Madam Chair. This one is just more a housekeeping one. There was a motion that pre-existed, the board coming together here after the elections. It was just a check to see if we still want this brought back actually through the finance committee.
So, does there anyone have an interest in continuing with this work?
Not particularly. I think fuel prices have somewhat come down since the initial motion that was presented there. So,
So the impact upon district finances with recent decreases in fuel prices. The next month when we meet, we'll get increase. Sorry, Dan.
So, doesn't sound like anybody's interested in pursuing this. So, procedurally, Len, do we have to do a motion, notice of motion to reconsider? Or can we?
Well, there's a motion. This one exists. We probably should pass it.
So no motion to reconsider the next board meeting, this motion.
Second.
Quick to vote on that? Okay.
Yep.
All those in favor of the notice motion? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. And retirements and resignations? Marie?
Yes, so next week, we're going to put our retirements preparing for staffing for next week, so I'm going to read them. So we have Anne Campbell, teacher at Aspen Park, will retire March 31st after 20 years of service to the district. Sherilyn Hollander, senior library clerk at the Learning Resource Center, will retire April 30th after 23 years of service. David Brooker, a teacher at Highlands, will retire at June 30th after 17 years of service in the district. And we have 2 teachers that decided to resign, so they're returning from leave. And it's Deborah Graham, who was a teacher at Hornby for many years, has resigned after 12 years of service in the district. And Donna Mary has resigned after 13 years of service in the district. And all the retirees of this list will be honored at the function.
Which Vice Chair Weber will arrange.
Will be honored.
Dennis?
Just a quick question. No, these aren't, but take the first one, Anne, 20 years of service. That's 20 years of service here. That's not her total teaching career, is it? Okay. Yeah, because I thought that at some point you used to give us both.
No, all of the whole years of service, just say BC certified at a certain year, and if folks still care to have that, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Motion to receive
Very
management report.
perfect. Yeah.
If you wanted to have the year that, how long did BC?
Basically, how long I've been a teacher. It's normally they're retiring after 35 years. So you start seeing somebody at 17 years, you figure, well, maybe he's taking a reduced pension, but I kind of doubt it. So.
So I'll be happy to.
Sure. Just in brackets behind each. So.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we've got a motion to receive the report. Seconded, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mr. White, Finance Committee.
We did most of this. We did the amended budget.
The only thing we didn't do was Highland.
Oh, look at that.
I went to that one. Cape Lasso, we reported on that one.
We removed 6. Oh, yeah, you're right. Cape Lazo, we didn't address it officially in the meeting. However, we did receive a report in the question and answer period, so
That's right.
that's probably all right.
It was done.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add with respect to your report?
We'll just move receipt of it.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Janice, can you give us a report with respect to the Policy Advisory Committee?
You see before me the report in the minutes. And for board information, the Policy Committee adopted the terms of reference. We deleted Policy 101, number 2, to another meeting. Number 3, we passed it last for a previous meeting. And so in the recommendation for the French immersion program, that the board referred the policy to management to review of educational costs and implications. That's my motion, that we refer.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that? Just maybe for everyone's information, there was quite an interesting process that led to that policy. The French Advisory Committee spent quite a lot of time discussing what should be included in the policy, and it was quite a good process. I don't think that the policy has actually been to the board table yet. For a first look at what happened was it went to the district, or the district leadership and advisory committee, and that's where it was. So there are some financial implications, of course, with this, and so that's why it's here, so that management can give us a report with respect to this policy, because the board has never had that information as a whole yet. So, yeah.
And if I may, it's extremely well written, it's extremely detailed, and it'll provide, I think, a good starting off point for management to have their discussions.
Yeah. Okay. So all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, and the next one is the dedication of naming of school facilities. That came back to the Policy Committee for a little revamping and changing some wordsmithing, but the motion is that the board adopt the revised policy and regulation 8002 and 8002 R1, which is dedication and naming of school facilities as presented.
Seconded?
Second.
Any discussion?
Has it been circulated?
Yes, it has.
I just have a question. Will that result in the date being changed on the policy to today's date? It reads April 22nd, 08, or how does that work? Do you know?
It'll be revision 2 and get changed to today's date.
So it'll be revision 2 and then it'll be today's date.
Len?
It's really minor.
So that date up there on the top just reflects the last policy date that was passed, so. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Motion to receive report as presented.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So Janice, board appointees to other bodies, committee structures, so if you could just give us a report just with respect to the VISTA conference.
Yes, Madam Chair. We held a VISTA conference in our district. Recently, we had 50 trustees from all over Vancouver Island came and did a showcase. And tonight, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the district staff and those who came out and helped. To Sherry and Alan and Dr. Tinney, your help was greatly appreciative. They were instrumental in putting a wonderful program together. And we have some teachers I'd like to acknowledge tonight also, with Ken Lees, April Lewis, and then we have some other people, Florence Jean, Teresa Crawford, and Lynn Joseph. They came out on a Saturday and did a presentation to the trustees, and we thank them very much for coming out. We had teachers at Valley View, Stu Savard, Richard Murphy, and Bill Green and Ron Grantham also came out, and along with Jan Smith, Melanie Zimmer, and Jen Turner. And we had a student, Marnie Denham-Clare, and I hope I pronounced her name right. She came out and did an aerobics presentation for us, and it was really great to come out and do that.
With participatory.
And the other thing I would like to acknowledge, and even though their names are not on the list here, the one comment we heard from the trustees and people from other districts that came out was our school sites, and that has to go out to QP, our maintenance and janitorial. When we were at Valley View, the comment we had was, how old is the school? Wow, it's maintained, the cleanliness and the maintenance, so very well impressed. I'd like to acknowledge our QP and our maintenance and our janitorial, along with our teaching staff, because without you, we weren't able to highlight our district, and it was very well received. And I went to the conference this weekend, and all the Vancouver trustees were still commenting on the wonderful presentation and showcase our district did, and I thank you all for your help in making it a wonderful weekend. That's my report. Oh, yes, and I forgot one person, I'm sorry. Debbie Page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is personal professional development funding. So this one is a bit tricky because it deals with CODI dollars that we might allocate to our teachers. And as I understand it from talking to the CDTA liaison committee, that our district is funded at a lower level than many of the other places in the province, and that they had sort of given up pursuing Pro-D funds in favor of class size issues in the past. So while we may like to be able to give them some more money, it remains a contractual issue. And I think that what we'll do is we cannot discuss contractual issues at a public board meeting, but what we will do is at an in-camera meeting, perhaps talk to our director of HR to see what action our board can take if we felt that we would like to support something in bargaining with respect to this. So we'll have to sort of leave it there. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to new business now. Lake Trail Connections Program Proposal. Sheila McDonald, on behalf of the Lake Trail School Pack, has forwarded us some information with respect to this. And looking for thoughts and comments by trustees. I think she needs to have a letter of support with respect to this.
Well, it's actually a resolution by the board to submit the application request from the fund, which comes from the school board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Lori?
I have a question for Len. I know that another school is trying for one of these grants as well. How does that work?
Sure. Sure, the community is actually in the mix, right? So there's $8,000 was allocated out. That's the only one that I've actually heard or seen, and that one has been submitted. So it is $24,000 in total. It could be 3 grants, or as pointed out here, it could be all 3 grants. It would be difficult to do all of it now because we've asked for the money. Yeah.
I'm not sure, just a point of clarification here, we'll break with usual protocol. I think maybe Sheila was asking just for a letter of support, not any monetary support at this point. Right. Or, no,
The application.
you're looking for an $8,000 grant from the government.
No, the proposal is asking for the $8,000 submitted for completion of last year's application. I don't know if it's from the speaker or not, but it was related to last year's application. This is a new round of funding. And our request is for a full $24,000. It's not money from the school district. It's from the
It was, the deadline was extended. I don't believe they actually considered them stuck for.
I believe this is a new round.
Okay, we could see. Green?
I'm aware of another school who, in this new round, is requesting an $8,000. They're looking at that one as well, so I can't support Lake Trail wanting all three, knowing there is indeed another school who's looking to put in an application. And so I know whether or not they go through with that, I can't support all three.
Okay, any other comments? Janice?
So application is March 31st. We have one more board meeting for the end of the month. So I'm wondering if they have to come to the board resolution. Am I correct on this, if we have any other ones? So I'm wondering if we maybe can defer voting on this until then to make sure, like we have other schools coming in there, because she's asking for $24,000. I would like to support this, but I don't know what other schools are doing it, so I hate to sort of support one and not support the others. So I'm just wondering if maybe we could wait. We have time, if we can wait. So my question.
I'm wondering if making it just up to a maximum of $24,000 so that we get the most money, and then if other schools come, then it would be sort of watered down.
Just in terms of timing, getting the support from the other organizations, be it the city in this case, or town Cumberland, or wherever. If you pass this so late in March, you never get it.
Yeah, well, that's why I need that clarification. Thank you for that.
Lori?
I'm with Len. That's day of our board meeting, and it'd be too late.
Okay.
I think we can support this letter. I think each one goes in separately, and we can support each one as they come in. And it's up to the position of the grant holder to disperse the money as they see fit. They may see this and go, this is a perfect proposal. They'll give them $24,000. Or they may say, no, you know what, we'll give this one $16,000 and Cumberland $8,000, or whatever school. So I think I would support each one as they came in. And
Did I see your hand up over there?
Just because I've been working with Lake Trail on this one, I've been working on it for quite a long time, and Sheila has done a ton of work in terms of making it amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
If I could just ask for clarification through you, Madam Chair, the Secretary Treasurer, in the past, how have they gone forward from the board? Have they gone as separate applications, or have they gone as one only endorsed by the board, or do they stand alone on their own merit?
We've only had the one application, that's it.
So there are no rules?
There are.
Oh, I'm surveying.
No rules, it's good, yeah.
And the dilemma is that there is the deadline to get the work done. The deadline is tight, and this one has been through the Lake Trail Pack a number of times, and the work has been done through with the city and getting the community-based support. So I don't know whether or not the board feels comfortable enough to accept it in its entirety and let those people decide, whoever makes the decision. But I'm not sure through senior staff if any other senior staff have been approached by other schools to help steward another grant coming. There's one coming from Courtney L.
So my question is, if this needs to be done by the 31st and we have no board meetings between now and then, how will they get them done?
Yeah, you did.
Tom?
So I'm prepared to support the $24,000 under the proviso that should other applications come in and should the board be in a position to comment on them, it might require the board to reconsider the full $24,000. But rather than holding up this process, support the $24,000 with that proviso.
I see a lot of people nodding. Anyone disagree with what Tom has said?
No.
Okay, so sort of proceeding on that understanding, does anyone have any additional comments to make?
I'll make a comment. I like the proposal that Lake Trail put forward. I thought it was well thought out and something that clearly the area could use. My only hesitation is that there are other schools that need as well. And if they are putting in the time to make a proposal, I'd like to be able to consider those as well. That's it.
Okay. Debbie, what's the motion?
That the board provide a letter of support for Lake Trail.
No.
An application.
I'm sorry.
An application.
We're going to have to,
Application for the grant.
we're going to have to read.
Len's got something for us here. What do we need?
Resolution.
Yeah.
So how should it be? Can you help us with the wording here?
That you approve the Lake Trail project to the maximum available
Funding?
funding.
Okay, so what do you think of that motion then? That the board approves the Lake Trail proposal to the maximum level of funding.
Works for me.
So again, I'm fine with that as long as it's understood that if there's a opportunity to revisit that, we won't be overly annoying the Lake Trail population by saying we need to amend the dollar value.
The proposal kind of encompasses the coordinate down, I don't know if it's right before, but in terms of planning and community development and facilitation, it actually includes the three schools as part of the stakeholder work. So it may be a compatible proposal.
Okay, good. So I think we're in good shape then on this. So all those in favor of the resolution? Opposed? Carried. Thank you to Sheila and Sherry for all your work on this. This is a good thing. Janice, did you want to speak to the Summer Leadership Conference in Penticton?
No, just the motion. Any trustee wishes to attend Summer Leadership Conference in Penticton may do so on from optional board business.
Have a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, now we'll skip down to daily physical activity. I have to pass the gavel again.
Madam Chair, I don't believe you have to pass the gavel unless there's a motion on the floor that you want to speak to.
I'm not prepared to give it back.
I think we need a clock on me sometimes, so I'm more comfortable with Mr. Weber hanging on to this. So, daily physical activity. As mentioned, we had Richard Murphy and one of our students come and give us a class on daily physical activity when we were at Valley View for the trustee conference, and it was an amazing thing to me. I loved it because this is a way for kids to be active and to get fit and not to participate in organized sports. Some kids are just not sort of wired up for playing soccer or baseball or whatever. So this is another way that they can learn to be physically fit. And I think it is excellent what we're doing in the district with respect for that. My issue is that when the kids get to high school, they have to fill out their forms to prove or to say this is what I'm doing for my daily physical activity. And we don't provide them with the opportunity to have daily physical activity at school. So we're asking them really to report on things that are in their private life. And I wonder about that. And I wonder about if the expectation is that these reports that they're filling out are considered in their report cards.
So, through you, Madam Chair, just for information, so daily physical activity, there is a requirement for there to be reporting on a report card, and it's mandated in the legislation. And so the ministry did not provide us with any thoughts and ideas about what that could look like, simply the declaration that there was a need for it to be reported on a report card, actually at all levels, elementary and secondary. So across the province, people put their heads together and in a perfect world would have enough resources to offer daily physical activity to all students in high school. That would include the gym space and the time inside the timetable. We don't have those, and nobody does, except for a couple of schools who've made some conscious decisions to put the time inside their timetable. So because of that, and because of the notion that there is always in secondary, usually a way for a student to provide outside data for for coursework that they may be completing at a different level, Royal Conservatory of Music, some courses that they might be taking through at a different level, that we were obliged to provide students with an alternate opportunity to log and track their daily physical activity minutes, and we were to accept those as their time if we couldn't physically provide them that time inside the school day. And that's the common practice across the province. In fact, the ministry provided us with some electronic templates that we found interestingly difficult to maneuver and manipulate. So we created our own and are in the process of piloting it this year and tweaking it based on how the kids' reaction is. Of course, and the reaction's pretty consistent. This is really dumb. This is very difficult to do. Can you make it easier? So we keep revising and revising. But there are two things that trustees need to know. There is a need, legislative need to report, and we have to show some ability to track daily physical activity, either the daily physical activity we are providing inside the school day or accepting that students are doing daily physical activity outside of the school day. We are obliged to accept that logging. So we created some templates that people came actually from all over the island are now choosing to use because they're at least reasonably easier than the ministries, and we will continue to work on hearing student and parent concerns about it. But we would love to change the fact that we have to track it and report it, but it's legislated that we have to, and it has to be part of a record of personal record for students. So we have to have something.
So I guess that's my issue, is the record keeping involved, and what happens if, I didn't do 30 minutes today, what if I only did 10 minutes today, or God forbid I didn't do anything today and have to do it tomorrow. And I wonder to what degree what if parents just provide a letter to say, I believe my child is having 30 minutes a day of physical activity once a year, and then that's it.
And it's not the parent who has to sign the anecdotal or the letter grade to the report card. That's very difficult for teachers, right? Very difficult for them. It's a tough position to be in, and you and I have spoken about it before. And it is the balance between having a legislated mandate around daily physical activity, which nobody would argue the physical activity piece is good for students. We would never argue that. It's the housekeeping that is also required that has determined that at secondary school in particular, we had to come up with some ability, and it's about relationships and trust. But at the end of the day, it's the teacher who has to have something that they can believe in, that they can discuss with a student around some kind of logging and tracking, because the teacher assigns, the liability is the teacher's. And so we want to try and make that as meaningful for both the student who's going to engage with the teacher and the teacher who has to sign the report, card. So this is where we've landed. We've done it for other things. We do it for challenge around family and personal planning, right, for students, for families that are value-based around those issues, and ask for exclusion. We do it for homeschooling very often when students are coming back into our system from homeschooling, where we just, in our relationships with that student and their family, we accept their word on certain curricular objectives being made because we have no other way to prove that they haven't in homeschooling. And this is where I don't think we're any different than any other district. This is where we are. We have a need to log and track. And at the end of the day, if a student says they've done 30 minutes, we have no ability and desire to prove them wrong.
So speaking of tracking, I think in future conversations between Trustee Barr and Assistant Superintendent Elwood will be 30 seconds or less.
Okay, sorry.
Give me that gavel right now.
I am absolutely
Francis.
I think that I think it's a huge issue, actually, in terms of having government ultimately legislate what children need to do at home. Because it's accepted that there isn't time or space or whatever in the school, hence they're providing templates in order to do this at home. And I think we're getting into pretty scary waters when you have the Ministry of Education legislating what's maybe a good thing in principle, but legislating a requirement because there's not enough money or time or whatever to actually do that. Because then is there a requirement that you need to eat breakfast and write that down and get, or else you won't graduate. Like there's a requirement that you will not graduate if this log isn't completed according to the legislative mandate. And grade 12s are talking about protests and all sorts of things. Because in theory, you can be a straight A student who protest by not handing in the log, and you don't graduate. So I think it's really scary in terms of having this kind of government infringement into what should be home-based.
Protesting, I suppose, could be a physical activity as well. Danny and then Janice?
Okay, going back a bit, the government delegislated the requirement for physical education as a requirement for graduation a number of years ago. So maybe they should put it back in the proper manner. It would be done in the school as opposed to taking what could be a fictitious assessment of what the students actually do.
I actually see some benefits in doing it the way it is. And there is some controversy, but I'll just go in the rate of my kids having mandatory PE, looking at their requirement and the grad requirements, what they want to do to graduate. So looking at my children's timetable, if they were going to do PE, they would have to drop another subject, which would be physics, chemistry, biology, or whatever. They were involved in sports outside the school. They were football, or whether it was softball, or whether it was baseball. And I actually kind of like this because it gave them the opportunity of pursuing outside curriculum, but keeping the curriculum in the school. Because when you get to be a secondary school level and you want to take band, how do you say band, limits to what you can do. So this time they gave some children flexibility. And my youngest son had filled his form out. The school looked at his work. They looked at him, actually, what his sports activity included in that. And I personally found it okay, because it gave my children the flexibility, as other kids the flexibility, taking extra courses. Because if you mandate grade 11 PE or grade 12 PE, then you're taking away. What are you going to take away? And what else can they not do? So does it need work? Yes, it does. But I also think it gives those students the flexibility.
Okay. So then to you, and then question, well, what's the board's pleasure with this item? Because it's one that we could probably talk about forever and ever, and we're dealing with a legislative direction at this point in time.
I think Fran makes a good point. I mean, how would our employees like it if we said, it's a condition of your employment, we'd like you to fill out this log of 30 minutes a day of physical activity, and that's no, but on your own time. Like we're not going to provide the space or the money to pay for programs outside of your workday. I think this is just not okay. It's a huge intrusion by the government into people's lives, and it's posing, I think, an impossible situation on teachers of having to track this stuff. So I don't know what the answer is. What legislation is it that's in place? Where does that derive from? A ministerial order or
It's a
something?
ministerial order and obligatory. It's the daily physical activity, and it's about how that actually occurs and how it's tracked. There's actually specific language about that. I can get it to you.
Well, I wouldn't mind actually personally having a further conversation about this another day after that information comes forward.
I'm curious if this is something that is shared with other issues shared by other school districts, and could be a subject for discussion at PCSTA.
This is actually the first time I've heard this as an issue, and it's not been an issue that's been raised before. But what we could do is our VISTA meeting, we have an executive meeting coming up and a fall VISTA meeting. Maybe one of the things on the agenda our district could put forward is a conversation with other districts and finding out maybe where they want to go and whether it is an issue. But to be honest with you, this is the first time it's been brought up, so I'm not too sure other districts have the same concern.
Not for me. I've heard it from others.
So the suggestion is to revisit this at an upcoming or another board meeting. Does that work? Just
What education committee?
education committee? Could do. Okay, for an upcoming education
Is that okay?
meeting. That's fine.
Do you need a motion for that?
I don't think so.
Oh, can't I make a motion?
We don't need a motion for that.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you again, Mr. Weber. Okay, now on to correspondence. There's a letter received by the district from Mr. Emery with respect to O Canada in schools. Sherry or Alan may have a thing or two to say.
Madam Chair, our elementary school represents that. None of our schools actually begin the babysitting camp, and it's very appropriate attendance in Canada. So it is some throughout the year. And secondary, would you say a major assembly?
Not as much in elementary, but appropriately, it is used appropriately. We don't assemble the same way in secondary as we do in elementary. We'll have weekly assemblies and things like that. But as appropriate, we're going to stay in.
I know.
Certainly in our emerging schools, we sing in both languages.
Actually, I was going to say it blows me away sometimes when I'm out in schools that the kids in just the English schools are singing it in both languages, and I think that's just so cool. So, yeah, so I had a little email exchange with Mr. Emery as well, and just told him my personal story of my daughter at Brooklyn School. Their class was the one that got to record O Canada, and then that CD was played for the whole school to sing to, and it was a huge source of pride. So I think we have a lot of pride in our country and our schools, and I know I definitely hear that when I'm out and about. Anyone have any comments with respect to this?
So motion to acknowledge, receive, and file.
Second.
Second? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we have a letter from Dale Hallier and Andrew Black. There's more discussion there, so as you recall at our last meeting, as a result of the Finance Committee report, Highland staff, PAC had written a similar letter to say that they wanted the advisory system put back in the school, and Finance recommended we refer it back to Highland staff and PAC to flesh out the estimate. And so we voted in favor of that motion at our last meeting.
Be brought forward as a part of the budget process.
Yes.
Excuse me, is this not the enrollment decline at Highland Secondary School that we're talking about?
I'm sorry, thank you
I think
very
you
much.
skipped one.
Okay,
Sorry.
Okay, I'll get back to number 2. Thanks very much for keeping me in mind. So I don't have to say that all over again. So if we could just go to number 3 for a moment. So I don't know if you'd entertain a motion to acknowledge, receive, and file as well. That was a letter in support of the PAC letter. Anyone want to?
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
Okay, second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks. Okay, so now back to number 2. Thank you. So where the teachers have written us a letter with respect to the enrollment decline, and if the school stays the way it is, perhaps there will be not enough kids to sustain it. So any thoughts with respect to that?
I would move that this material be folded into the material that we're requesting from the public over the next month to help inform any future discussions the board may have around grade structure in the district.
Second that.
Did you get all that there?
Refer to reconfiguration.
Refer to grade structure feedback. Hopefully we will get a lot of correspondence like this, drawing things to our attention about what's good and what's bad. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Letter from Marcella Simpson with regards to Halby Hall. Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion that the board direct management to enter into negotiations with Black Creek Halby Hall Society to transfer Old Black Creek School to the society for a nominal fee.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion with respect to that? I have a question of Mr. as to what the status is of legislation and our policies and so forth with respect to this.
Sorry, I didn't realize that was going to be the motion. I would have brought the material.
Sorry.
But I do think we still have some process we have to go through before we got to that. So my suggestion might be that we talk about it in the finance committee before we get to that. I mean, one of the things I'd really like to see is if this is the case, that we maybe make something of a clause in there that it return to us if they change it, something like that.
Yeah.
But I still think to comply with the legislation, I think we would have to put this into some sort of process.
Okay, Fox.
Move to refer to the Finance Committee.
Okay, so you withdraw the original motion?
Yes.
You're in agreement, Mr. White?
Yes.
Trustee White? Thank you. So then the new motion to refer to finance?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
She didn't like one thing referred to tonight.
And finally, the last letter on the agenda with respect to eliminating purchase and sale of bottled water in schools. Anyone have any thoughts with respect to that?
No. I find it difficult to do that as much as I can sympathize with the fact that she's trying to keep those plastic bottles out of there, but quite honestly, water in the bottles is much better than what we used to have in those machines in there. With the bottled sugar that used to fund a lot of the school travel and stuff. So.
Fran?
I was going to say something similar in that I think that I would prefer to focus on education and persuasion as opposed to regulation. And I think that generally, but I think that specifically here, I think it doesn't hurt to have bottled water as a backup in case of emergency. Not that long ago, was at a restaurant where there was some water main break in Courtney, so the choice was bottled water or pop. So, and also implications for people who are diabetic too, in terms of pop or juice or water. In a case of emergency, those machines are right there as well. So I do think it does make sense to limit unnecessary use of unnecessary bottles, of unnecessarily bottled water. But having said that, I do think that education would be preferable over regulation.
I'd like to make a motion that we acknowledge, receive, and file this on the grounds that I don't think we can do it right now.
Second.
Any further discussion with respect to this?
Well, it's a good supply of water for earthquake preparedness too, instead of those little bag things that you have inside the little white cabinets. So you can always smash the glass in front of it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, the power will be up, so
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments from the public with respect to the business? Next. Jan.
I have to stand up for this.
No,
You can
whatever
say
you like.
that.
No,
I
no.
just don't feel like standing up here. The discussion paper on the grade structure presents implementation, not ongoing operating costs for each model. It would be helpful for the public to know the difference in the dollars required annually for the school district to operate under the various grade structures, as well as the funding the board will receive from the Ministry of Education, even if it's only for a 3-year time frame. Will the board make this information available soon so that feedback provided by the public may be as informed as possible? In addition, since revenue is currently based on enrollment, how confident is the board in the enrollment projections provided in the discussion paper? And if not, can the board provide projections on enrollment, costs, and revenues that it supports as a basis for future planning prior to the March 27th deadline for the feedback?
So just to clarify that the discussion paper is just that. It's only meant to stimulate discussion. It's not, as Thomas said, a menu of choices for people to choose from. So there hopefully will be some discussion with regards to the financial implications of these options or other options that people would like to bring forward. With respect to the demographic projections, they really are just someone's best guess. It's not an exact science, and I think I understood Jordan to say that they were not adjusted for local knowledge. These ones, so in other words, if we know that there's going to be huge development taking place somewhere, we haven't sort of considered that. So it's just a best guess. We felt that we should not put a lot of effort into making really, really exact models at this point because we don't really know what the public thinks generally about these things for sure. We want to elicit your feedback with regards to these things. So in the future, if we do decide to make a change, there would be more explicit information provided, but just not at this discussion phase. Did I hit most of your topic?
Yeah, it's just difficult to be able to give the feedback when there's so many factors on the financial side of things.
Tom has something.
So I'm wondering, Len, like on the breakdown, how I've interpreted the implementation cost and estimates, the ones that have staffing attached, and those are annualized costs. So staffing, resources, QP staffing, moving would be more one-time only, big toy moving one-time only. So within the numbers, there are some arguably broad numbers, but it's meant to give some indication that those would be annualized costs.
It's just things like, in the grade 6 to 8 middle school example, there's reference to the likelihood of this structure creating a need to close more elementary schools. And that's going to impact busing costs. So there's all these ripple effects that just wondering if there's some way you can have a 3-year, like to operate under this model, we're looking at X number of dollars to operate under this model. That's kind of what I was doing.
With all of the choices, no matter what we do in the future, there will have to be choices to keep this and to get rid of that, to support this. And it's just, I think, depends on the feedback that we get from people of what they feel is important to their kids' education.
So we'll do the financial impact.
I don't think this board is going to move forward on anything without having our eyes wide open. We acknowledge this is just a ballpark at this point. Anyone else? Okay, thanks very much. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Opposed?
Camera.
Thanks. Yeah, so trustees need to stick around. We have a second part to our meeting. Thank you very much.
Barb, I saw that book.
Yes.